we conclude now that the Immigration Department have granted the right visa to the right person in the right circumstances, and they get their visa. Initially, you get a 1-year period of stay. At the end of the first year, you make an application for an extension. If there have been no change in the circumstances in that time, you'll then get, almost automatically, even though you must apply still, you get a 2-year period of stay. And at the end of those 2 years, you go through the extension exercise again, and you get another 2 years, assuming there's been no change in your circumstances. At the end of those 2 years, you make an application for the final extension, and they give you 3 years. That's a total of 8 years. What that means is that by the time you get to 7 years, continuous ordinary residence in Hong Kong, you can make an application to remove all your conditions of your immigration status. And you can do this on the basis that you want to become a permanent resident. And once you become a permanent resident, effectively, you become a Hong Kong citizen, almost. You don't get a passport, but the rights and the privileges that go with permanent residency are the equivalency of citizenship. So the test for permanent residency after 7 years is, have you been continuously and ordinarily resident in Hong Kong for a period of not less than 7 years, and any absences from Hong Kong in that time, have they been of a merely temporary nature, as evidenced by what you leave behind to return back to each time you make a trip away from Hong Kong. So permanent residency is available to you in those circumstances. And the Immigration Department don't put out any numbers on permanent residents that are granted, foreign nationals who are granted permanent residency on this basis. But there's an interesting issue associated with permanent residency in Hong Kong, because there are 2 types of permanent residency. There's the permanent residency you get if you're Chinese, and the permanent residency you get if you're not Chinese. It's all based on Chinese nationality law, and it's quite complex and it's quite convoluted. But the 2 differences are as follows. If you're Chinese and you get permanent residency, you cannot lose your permanent residency. You get the right of abode forever. If you're a foreign national and you have permanent residency, you can lose your right of abode after 3 years if you don't come to Hong Kong on at least 1 occasion in those 3 years. So the Immigration Department will allow you to keep your right of abode all throughout the time that you are physically present in Hong Kong on at least 1 occasion in any 3-year given period. If for any reason you can't meet that condition and you're away from Hong Kong for more than 1,095 days, I think it's 1,095 days, at a stretch, you are downgraded from the right of abode to the right to land, which is slightly different in terms of you can't vote, you can be deported, and you're not going to be able to benefit from the various government incentives that are available to permanent residents of Hong Kong, such as the taxation advantage, stamp duty advantages associated with buying property here now. There's one other downside, and that is your future children will not get the right of abode if they are born in Hong Kong, if you only have the right to land. So there are some considerations. And I was present at a talk that the first Chief Executive, Tung Chee Hwa, gave just after the handover, when the final policy for permanent residency and the right of abode for long-stay foreign nationals was announced. And he explained that they had thought long and hard about how to address this dichotomy between PR for Chinese nationals and PR for long-stay foreign nationals. And they felt that the 1 day in 3 year rule was really very, very liberal and was certainly sufficient to allow people to maintain their right of abode and enjoy the same quality of experience that Chinese people get as well. So it was quite a pragmatic solution to that particular problem. So for many employment visa holders and business investment visa holders and their families, permanent residency is the end game, and so it's worthwhile having a discussion about that today.